All right, so here's the thing. I love my Himalayan. I love that there's kind of an old school style and ruggedness to it. I love that I can take it out on the trails and feel almost a deeper connection with the wilderness. I can disconnect, and I'd even go as far as to say that when I'm on this bike, I feel a certain level of cool associated with it. You know, bottom line is it turns some heads. So I think a lot of those same arguments can actually be made about the Brompton here. At first glance, you might think it's a bit dorky or awkward, but you got to admit there's a strange fascination about it that taps into some sort of primordial curiosity. When I'm out on this bike, I get a lot of questions, I get a lot of looks. And even though it might not fit that traditional definition of cool, I definitely think it's a conversation starter. And when people see me riding it, there's a part of them that thinks to themselves, I could see myself on one of those. Now, with that said, absolutely none of that holds true for this monstrosity right here. The minute you decide to put your butt on a scooter, you turn in your cool card forever. There is absolutely nothing about this vehicle that emanates cool. Buying a scooter is sort of equivalent to that point in your life where you buy your first minivan. You sort of admit to yourself that you are officially in the dweeb club for life, and you're at peace with it. So let me go ahead and quell any sort of confusion you might have or extinguish any sort of optimism you might be thinking about riding and owning a scooter. At no point in the entire lifetime of you owning or riding a scooter will there ever be a time that someone in a car next to you looks out their window at you on the scooter and thinks to themselves, wow, that's a sweet ride. Who's that guy? It won't happen. You will forever and perpetually be a dweeb on a scooter. But I'm here to tell you that's okay. And I'm going to give you several reasons today in defense of the scooter and why I think that despite the immense dweeb factor of riding one, that it actually is an incredibly useful and practical vehicle to have in your garage. So let's get into it. All right, so first off, scooters can be incredibly cheap if you're sleuthy. Yes, a new Vespa is going to cost you $5,000, but if you scour Craigslist and you look at forums online and you watch Cycle Trader, you're going to find something incredibly cheap and still reliable. In my case, I picked this scooter up for $500 at the end of someone's driveway in rural Vermont. Since then, I've now had it for 6 years and it has never once broken down on me. It's been incredibly reliable. I have most certainly gotten my money's worth. All right, so second thing is a scooter is a great place to start if you're not quite sure how you feel about two wheels yet. Rather than going out and even buying something like a Himalayan that'll cost you $5,000, you can pick up a used scooter for under $1,000 and really see if it's something you like. It's a great two-wheeled vehicle to learn on as well because you don't have to worry about clutches or anything like that. It's all twist and go. So it's a really, really nice way to get familiar with riding around on two wheels without jumping right up onto a 400-pound bike. Which leads me to point number 3, is they're incredibly light. This scooter weighs under 200 pounds. I can pick it up, move it around, put it up on its center stand, all incredibly easily with almost no effort at all. The Himalayan, it takes effort to put it up on the center stand. It takes effort to move it around. There have been times when I've lost balance and dropped it. It's never happened on the scooter just because it's so darn light. So the other thing that I would say is that you just get a lot of bang for your buck. This scooter cost me $500, yet it comes with a center stand, a side stand, kickstarter, insane amount of storage under the seat, a rear rack that I've got a milk crate on, mud guards, a really nice battery compartment with a new battery in it. I've got a cup holder on it now, great brakes, great tires, all for $500. Speaking of storage, the scooter has a crazy amount of under-seat storage that's also lockable. Right now I've got my cover in here, as well as a lock and just space to basically hold an entire helmet or groceries or whatever it is that you want to put in there. You don't necessarily get that on a motorcycle, especially if you don't have panniers. The other thing that's just really nice about a scooter is it's simple. There's no fancy electronics, there's no fancy gadgets or weird evap systems. I mean, yes, it's carbureted, but otherwise it's a completely simple machine. And it's twist and go too, so you don't even have to worry about gear assemblies or shifting or clutches or any of that. So it's just a really, really great bike to also learn about small engines. So building on that, another really nice thing about owning a scooter, especially a really cheap used one, is that it gives you a really great platform to learn how to work on motorcycles. Going into buying this scooter, I knew very little about motorcycle maintenance. I knew how to do an oil change. I knew how to change a spark plug, kind of basic things like that. But I didn't understand how to adjust valves or change brake pads or swap out components or take a carburetor out and clean the jets or any of that stuff. So having this machine has allowed me to essentially learn how to tinker and learn how to adjust things. And worst case scenario, if I absolutely destroyed something and made it completely unrunnable, so what? It cost me $500. Yeah, I'm out of scooter, but I'm not stressing about it. So another good pro to the scooter is its practicality. Putting a milk crate on the back like this might look a bit ridiculous, but it's incredibly useful for grocery shopping. I used to take this scooter twice a week to get groceries when I was living up in rural Vermont, and I could fit 2 bags of groceries in the back and an extra set of groceries under the seat. So I could pretty much do all my grocery shopping while on this vehicle. So as far as security, again, because this specific scooter has such a low value, I don't really stress about security all that much. When I go someplace and I know I have to park it all day, I'll throw a quick chain around the tire and put a little wind/rain cover over the top, both of which only cost me about 20 bucks, and it's good to go. The helmet I use on this scooter is 14 years old. It's in pretty rough shape, but I never go more than like 30 or 40 miles an hour on this thing. So honestly, if someone really wanted to go to the effort to steal this, I'm not out a huge loss. And along those lines, it's incredibly cheap to insure as well. I think I pay 20 bucks a month for insurance on this thing, so it's really, really cheap. So something else about scouring around for a used scooter is you can get lucky and you can actually find a decently sized one. So yeah, most scooters are usually 50 cc. You probably can't get up over 35 or 40 miles per hour on it. This scooter that I found up in Vermont is actually a 125. So I can actually go about 55 miles an hour on this thing. I typically don't because it's a little bit scary, but it's capable of it. So I've been able to take this scooter up on some roads that probably some of the smaller neighborhood scooters wouldn't be able to handle. So I use this as a daily commuter all the time up on the back roads of Vermont, and now that I live here in Flagstaff, I take it into work all the time when I'm not riding my bicycle. So did you know that for every gallon of gas burned in a combustion engine, you produce 20 pounds of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere? So if we really do want to get to a future in this world of lower emissions, we need to start cutting back on how much we drive. Part of that solution could be downgrading to small, higher efficiency vehicles like scooters. Now, obviously riding your bicycle is better, but if you still want to get to work on a powered vehicle, switching to a scooter that gets 80 miles to the gallon will help reduce your emissions immensely. So something else to consider is that many states in the US at least don't require a motorcycle license to ride a scooter. So you can go out, you can get a small scooter, you can practice maneuvers on it, you can get familiar with the weight, how it leans, just get familiar with riding around on 2 wheels on a vehicle that doesn't have clutch or gear shifting, that's just twist and go. Then if you really enjoy it and you start getting really comfortable with it and almost outgrowing it, you can start thinking about actually getting a motorcycle license and upgrading to something a little bit bigger. So going back briefly to that point I made about using my scooter as a way to learn how to work and maintain a motorcycle, you can buy books just like this one that cost me 10 bucks, a Haynes Guide to Chinese and Taiwanese scooters. I've used this book for everything on how to tinker with this scooter, and it's been a lifesaver. I've learned how to install new speedometer lines and change the brakes and change the gear oil and take out the carburetor and just tinker with all sorts of things on this bike, all with a $15 or $10 Haynes book that I bought off of eBay. And again, there's no stress here because it is just a cheap scooter. The worst that could happen is you completely render it useless. And so what? You're out a few $100 bucks. Even if you only got one summer out of it, it's worth it. When I bought this scooter, I was expecting to only get 1 or maybe 2 riding seasons out of it. And here I am 6 seasons later and all the way across the country, and it still runs perfectly great. So going back to what I was saying about the gas mileage, I do get just about 80 miles per gallon on this scooter, and the tank holds almost 2 gallons, which means I can get over 150 miles on a single small tank of gas, which makes this an incredibly efficient and practical form of transportation for commuting. I live a little over 3 miles from my office, and most of the time I do try to ride my Brompton in or my other bike in, but when I want to get in quick, instead of taking the car, I take the scooter because it's just so much quicker, so much easier, and so much more practical than even taking the Himalayan in. Which leads me to my last point. The scooter is just simple and easy. Yes, I'm a dweeb when I ride it. Yes, it's a bit dorky, but it's just so fast. I can wheel this thing around, get it fired up, and be on the road in less than a minute. The Himalayan, it just takes a while. I gotta warm it up, I've gotta wheel it around, it's much heavier, I've gotta be really careful. It just takes more time. So if all I'm doing is looking to get into campus quickly, get to my office quickly, park a vehicle that I can lock up super fast and not have to worry about putting a huge cover over it and dealing with all that, I can just take the scooter and it literally takes me just a few minutes to get in. So it's just a really, really efficient and reliable and practical way to get into work. So, does riding around on this scooter make me a dweeb? Yes, yes it does. Is there even one redeeming cool factor about this particular scooter? No, there is not. However, is it a simple, efficient, reliable, and cheap way to get around town that also happens to have a lot of storage, is easy to maintain, and is better for the environment? You bet your ass is.